Key point 1. Masculinity is not inherently harmful. Many modern families suffer from a missing or weak father figure, making the children struggle with their own gender identities. With the growing confusion around the essence of genders, Robert Moore and Doug Gillette believe that two factors play a role in furthering the masculinity crisis that leads to the breakdown of a traditional family. Firstly, rituals that would serve to initiate boys into manhood have disappeared or become strictly ceremonial and meaningless. Therefore, boys never become men. So, boy psychology, which we'll discuss in depth later, dominates the world. This immature energy brings aggressive behavior, weakness, and violent abuse. Another contributing factor to the breaking down of masculine identity is patriarchy. Despite some linking abuse and violence to masculinity, it is the immaturity that's connected to such destructive behavior. The patriarchal male is envious of other people's achievements, as he cannot bear to see their betterment. Keep in mind that patriarchy is the definition of boy psychology. Having the traditional understanding of patriarchy, psychologists believe men lack connection to their more emotional, empathetic, and seemingly missing feminine side. However, the missing part is, in fact, masculinity. Mature masculinity, to be exact, is what we need more of. If we want humankind to thrive, we need more mature men and women. This book will help us get from boy psychology to man psychology and uncover the mature masculine energy within us. Key point 2. A proper initiation process is vital for men. Looking at the Cro-Magnon caves, we can see images of our predecessors, hunters, warriors, and providers. We can feel deep inside the energy that pushed them and now pushes us. These caves are sanctuaries, places created for the process of initiation, a ritual we see today in tribal cultures. Throughout history, stories of the theme of initiation of men and women often come up. Moving from a lower state of being to a higher one is an integral part of human nature. No wonder this process is so prominent in our lives. In modern culture, however, initiation is a pseudo-ritual with no real substance. Joining the military or a gang might seem like the way to become a man, but those establishments warp the essence of masculinity and do more harm than good. They follow the patriarchal way of manning up, which is destructive at its core. Keep in mind that in the initiation process for males, the boy ego has to die. What makes a ritual real is a dedicated sacred space, where the initiates go through emotional and physical trials guided by an elder who shares their wisdom. In tribal cultures, these spaces would be a hut or a cave where the elder, a mature man with secret knowledge of manhood, and the tribe itself subjected the boys to an initiation process separate from the world's influences. We face a lack of mature masculine role models in meaningful initiation rituals, and that's why men feel anxious, belittled, and unappreciated. But there is hope. The masculinity crisis can be corrected using our inner blueprints. According to Jung, we behave under archetypes, a set of patterns passed down from our ancestors. We can find many archetypes in nature. For example, a baby duck knows to look for a caretaker or mother when it hatches. We, as humans, seek the archetypes of mother and father, whether our actual parents fit into the standard description or not. Studies show strong evidence of these archetypes in folklore and mythology worldwide. We can find harmony in life, allowing archetypes to guide our lives and be a blueprint for our behavior. Moore and Gillette show men that they can better themselves and people around them by accessing their archetypal potentials and discovering their strengths and weaknesses. We will discover them more attentively in the following sections. Did you know men can have female archetypes that form a subpersonality, anima? Male subpersonality in women is called animus. Key point 3. Boyhood archetypes can either stifle maturity or push toward it. To talk about man psychology, we need to address boyhood first. Remember, the 4 male archetypes arise from 4 immature masculine energies. By exploring them, man can get a better understanding of their psyche. Let's have a look at these archetypes. Divine child is the primal force inside every boy. It brings peace while being dependent and weak. Finding the connection to the divine child within reaps many benefits. Moore and Gillette explain that an archetype has its shadow forms. The first is the high chair tyrant, who is sure that the world revolves around him. He cannot take criticism and would never take advice. The opposite is the weakling prince, whose passive nature won't let him break out of being the victim. Finding how the shadows manifest will help you access the creativity of the divine child. Next is the precocious child, whose curiosity pushes you to learn and share knowledge. Its shadow forms, however, aren't so helpful. You've met the know-it-all before. He's sure he's superior and cannot fathom why the people around him still don't know that. He likes putting everyone down, which can work great on an inflated ego. This immature energy often comes from envy, not being sure of his worth. The trickster comes for others, continuing the cycle of abuse. The dummy, on the other hand, takes the victim role. He's slow to grasp things and is always a little out of it, which is frequently just a facade. While all boyish archetypes partly connect to the archetypal energy of mother, this connection is the oedipal child's main trait. In his spirituality, he wants to connect to be one with the mother. As the Greek legend of Oedipus tells us, being too close to mother will only cause pain, which brings us to the first shadow form, the mama's boy. In his case of union with mother, he jumps from woman to woman and indulges in pornography and masturbation. His polar opposite, the dreamer, gets caught up in the spirituality of his search. Instead of being productive, he's stuck in his dreams and aspirations. Although the most advanced, the hero prevents men from reaching maturity, which is more evident in its shadow. The grandstander bully is the heroic type. His risk-taking and dominant nature put him at the center of attention. He knows his worth but forgets about his limitations. The passive coward will run away from conflict rather than defend himself. The hero won't let the man ask for a hand when needed, but when the hero dies, he leaves a place for growth. The boy can now be a man. Key point 4. The king is the primal energy that brings order. Initiation into manhood doesn't mean you have to destroy all that's left of the boy. Instead, you use the boyish energy to build from it and become a mature man. The archetypes within every man are the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. Like the divine child, the king is central. His core function is to access the order from the divine world and make it a reality in his kingdom. While this idea is present in every culture, its importance strikes us on a smaller scale. A family without a proper father is in shambles. The concept of fertility being tied to masculine energy developed with the steady shift towards a patriarchal society. Fertility is the second function of the king. Stories from ancient Egypt and China link the mortal king's well-being to the prosperity of his land. His blessing is part of this second function too. Remember, a king's audience isn't for him to boast, but to recognize what his people are contributing. Most of us never feel this idealized energy fully. What we often see is instead the shadow king, either the tyrant or the weakling. The tyrant is only interested in himself and thinks the others are only there to serve him. He will exploit anyone who shows a sign of vulnerability to cover his own because on the other side of the king's shadow is the weakling. His lack of inner structure makes him paranoid that the people hurt by the tyrant will come to get him. To stop the tyrant or the weakling from manifesting, the parents need to pay attention to how they treat the grandiosity of the divine child. They need to get the boy out of his high chair and give him affirmation simultaneously. Similarly, accessing the king means keeping the perfect distance between the archetype and our ego. Think of the king's energy as the sun. It's at the center, and a planet, the ego, is moving around it. Get too close and you become the arrogant tyrant, taking the place of a star. But move too far away and you won't get any king energy at all. By accessing the king the right way, we will find the peace and calm within us that allows us to love, nurture, and care. Key point 5. The calm warrior is the energy you need to fight for the good things in life. Moore and Gillette believe that war is a big part of human culture. They suggest it's how Egyptians spread the advancements of their culture, and India was able to become a place of spirituality. The warrior energy is one of the building blocks of our society. Its negative side is scary in its violence, especially for women who are likely to fall victim to it. But trying to repress this archetype will only make things worse, so instead, we will learn about it to channel its positive side. Don't forget that the warrior archetype is best characterized by aggression, but a mature man has to know the right circumstance to use it. Unlike the hero who leaps into battle without giving it much thought, the warrior knows what he's capable of in a given situation. He is aware of the risks, and his body and mind are working together in sync to prevent the worst from happening. What drives the warrior is his commitment, not to himself but to a goal, an idea, or a person. He is so devoted that he becomes emotionally detached. It lets him keep a leveled head, but he will not resort to cruelty while in touch with other archetypes. If the warrior's shadow traps a man, his family won't get the affection they long for. Emotional distance gives the sadist a chance to act. The sadist loves to destroy. His cruelty is directed at the weaker person, potentially resulting in domestic abuse. The sadist will hurt others and also the man himself, eating him from the inside. When we're not secure inside and do all we can to suppress another shadow, the masochist, its signs are already at play. The masochist makes a man feel weak. He won't stand up when people step on him. He'll take every attack until the rage of the sadist comes out. Losing connection to the warrior poses a significant threat of falling into the passive side of its shadow. We won't have the strength to get things done, but correctly accessing this energy will enable us to find the courage and power we need. By combining this energy with the king, the magician, and the lover, we can have compassion and create instead of destroy. Key point 6. The magician uses technology and wisdom for the betterment of people. From the shamans of Aboriginal tribes to the lawyers and scientists of modern civilization, all are driven by the magician energy, which develops technology to better our lives. Remember, those led by the magician archetype in its fullness hold special knowledge and pass it on to others to benefit the world. It's the archetype that sees hidden truth. In history, it's the advisor that guides the king to make the right decision. It also teaches our observing ego and keeps the other archetypes' influences at bay. The magician energy keeps the warrior from making rash decisions and benefits from its urge to spring into action. Our technological age, while very advanced, is also the time of the shadow magician. We cannot deny the disastrous effects technology has had on our planet because of the wrongdoings of the manipulator and the innocent one. On the active pole of the shadow, the manipulator doesn't use his wisdom for good. He withholds information to benefit only himself while hurting others in the process. A man possessed by the manipulator observes life stuck in his calculations and doesn't actually live it. The passive pole is just as harmful. The naive one doesn't share knowledge either. He wants the magician's prestige while avoiding the effort it takes to earn it. As many shadows we've discussed, he comes from a place of envy. Losing touch with the magician won't let us have the clarity in thinking that we need to make decisions. Be sure of them and follow the chosen path. To connect with the inner magician, your ego needs to be separate from your emotions. Try a focusing exercise created by philosopher and psychologist Jungian. When you experience intense emotions, pretend you're putting them in the middle of the room. Sit back and observe. This way, you can separate them from your ego, but not repress them. Once you tame your emotions, they won't have overwhelming power over your ego. We need to mix with the magician the king's concern for generativity and generosity, the warrior's ability to act decisively and with courage, and the lover's deep and convinced connectedness to all things. Robert Moore and Doug Gillette. Key point 7. The lover energy is a joy for life. All the forms of love that we know, romantic or brotherly, are manifestations of the lover. Its function is to satisfy our desires, physical, social, emotional, etc. Using his sensuality, a man guided by the lover feels the connectedness of the world. He loves to express life and gets great joy from it. Remember, the lover archetype is open-minded, so it often conflicts with conventional rules and even the other 3 archetypes. The active shadow of the lover, the addict, is so sensitive to the outside world that he gets pulled into his feelings too far. The addict is lost and restless. He's constantly looking for something to connect with, always unsuccessful. Because the addict is a grown-up mama's boy, he tries to escape femininity by living on a fix of masculine joy, leading to issues with boundaries, discipline, and authority. All these problems eventually hurt him and the ones around him. When we disconnect from the lover energy, we are possessed by the impotent lover. Unlike the active shadow, this passive one doesn't allow us to feel our lives to the full extent. The impotent lover has no passion, no motivation, and no connection. He is depressed. His sex life is basically non-existent. When he hits rock bottom, the addict will come in to try and save him by indulging in short-term satisfactions. Accessing the lover energy in its fullness gives us enthusiasm for a life driven by deep spirituality. The lover is the glue that keeps the other masculine energies connected with reality while they help him in return. The king won't let him get lost in the chaos of his creativity. The magician makes the lover step back from his emotions and reflect. The warrior pushes him into action. In connection with 3 energies, the lover will help us live a fuller life and find joy in it that we can then share with others. Key point 8. Using these techniques will allow you to access masculine energies. Growing up is by no means an easy task. It Giving up your childish ways and finding maturity takes a lot of effort. This journey seems intimidating, but little by little, we can try to reach our full potential. Imagine a sheet of paper with some metal shavings on top of it. Under the paper, there's a magnet that moves the shavings from side to side. Archetypes are just like the magnet. We only see the result of their work while they remain hidden. Of course, the energies of each archetype are different, which is why we can define them separately, but they influence one another in a perfect balance. Remember, the 4 male energies do not exist separately, but intertwine and work in a symbiotic way. By understanding man's psychology and how archetypal energies influence behavior, we can finally take responsibility into our hands. When our culture constantly pushes us apart, we will endure the process of connecting and finding the mature masculinity we lack. Now that we've learned about boyish and male energies, their shadows, and how they're connected, let's see how we can access them. What we need to do first and foremost is know the way shadow forms present themselves. Humility will be the key to this knowledge. Remember, we need to recognize our limitations and be ready to accept help. The first technique Moore and Gillette give us is active imagination dialogue. In this exercise, you talk with destructive energies within you out loud, in your head, or in writing. It might be uncomfortable at first, but once you get going, you'll make peace with them eventually. If you feel hostility, it's better to stop and talk to a therapist. For the second technique, invocation, you'll need to find a mental image of one of the energies we learned about. In a relaxing place, speak with this image and pray to it. Call to its power to enable you to feel the energy you need. The next thing we need is to admire other men. Whether a friend, a close relative, or a man from history, we need to appreciate mature men and learn from them. Invoking their image can help us connect with their energies. The last technique is acting as if. You need to act like the warrior. You act in a way the warrior would. This exercise is basically fake it till you make it. Soon enough, you will feel the warrior energy manifest in your life. The same goes for other archetypes. Conclusion. We live in an age ruled by immaturity. We can't be sure if there's ever been a time of mature men and women, but the rituals of initiating a boy into manhood were lost. But during the time of sacred kings, the warrior was essential in progressing civilizations. The magician would help other men with wisdom, and the lover was celebrated for artistic achievements. Today, the need to channel masculine energy is evident like never before. We must grow to keep up with the rise of our civilization. Maturity is the key to the survival of the human race. All the positive traits of the archetypes we discussed will undoubtedly benefit the world if these masculine energies are recognized and cherished. Accessing these energies is the make or break decision that determines how you will meet life's challenges. It is every man's responsibility to take his initiation into his hands and be accountable for the destructiveness of boyish energy. Indeed, this isn't an overnight process and will take some effort. But men need to take their transformation from boyhood to manhood seriously, like the mature men we know from history. Because only when we go through this process of maturing can we achieve true greatness. Try this. If you had nightmares, draw the image that haunts you, then depict it in a way that takes its power away. Put it in a box, for example. Make it as non-threatening as possible. This exercise can help you tame the emotions that cause those terrible dreams.